Hello and welcome back, beautiful soul, to another episode of Permission to Follow Your Inner GPS, your inner guided purpose soul path. I am your host, Angel Lady Terry Marie, a highly sensitive, intuitive empath, an angel channel, crystal goddess, and a BS karma buster. Today's amazing guest is Clarissa Wilson. She helps women entrepreneurs get a handle on their money, whether it's through mindset tracking or bookkeeping, so they get everything under control and build a healthy relationship with money so that it easily flows in and out of their bank accounts. Now, before anybody gets all like, what do you mean out of the bank account? Well, that's only fair to have a balance. Now, yes, you want to keep more than what goes out, but you still have to be, nice about it when it goes out, right, Clarissa?
Exactly.
So welcome, beautiful, and tell us a bit about yourself and your journey.
Thank you so much for having me. So a little bit more about me. It's 2018. So in 2013, 5 years ago, I actually lost my house to a fire at 2:00 in the morning. I was actually woken up basically by my spirit guides. No smoke detectors went off at all. And the fire was in the apartment literally next door to mine because my neighbors had fallen asleep with a cigarette and it fell to the floor. And I was just woken up because I knew something was wrong, but I had no idea what. It took a couple minutes to figure out what's going on. So I lost my house, and then 2 weeks later, I lost my job. So now I'm technically homeless and unemployed, but I'm living with my parents, so I'm not really homeless. That's why I say technically. And this happened for over a year. Me being unemployed, living with my parents. And during that year was when basically all of the ideas for starting my own business really came to me. Because I am an intuitive, I am an empath, I have all of those abilities. So I had to figure out how to use them. And when I first started my business, I did it as healing. But I have 3 college degrees in accounting. So that's why the money stuff was always the front of mind, because I did a lot of healing around money too. But then it came to being more of a money mindset coach because I'm unemployed and living with my parents. And so what better way to heal my own money story when I'm not really making any money? And then everything just kind of spiraled from there to where I am now, with basically using my intuition to help people heal their money story and be able to have a relationship with their money, because most of us don't even know that we do have a relationship with money. And by having that relationship, it really allows money to come into your life even easier.
That's awesome, because, and you're so right, there is a relationship with money. And people say, well, my job is my source. No, a job or your clients or your book, whatever it is, those are channels. Wouldn't you agree?
I completely agree.
Source. And it's interesting that most of us, especially women, nobody send us any nasty notes, okay? Mostly women have a bigger issue, generally speaking, with money because of traditional roles, even though so many of us are starting our own businesses or growing them or have a job inside the marriage or the partnership or whatever, right? And yet, we're the ones who have the biggest OMG relationship with money. Can you shed some light on why that is without getting, too much off course? Because we really want to know more about you and your journey. But why is that? Why do we have that?
I think the biggest thing goes back to when money first came about. women had absolutely nothing to do with money. They didn't know anything about money. Money was always handled by the men. The checkbook, or whatever you want to call it, was always managed by men only. And then probably through my research, it was around the 70s and 80s when women finally started being able to handle any kind of money, whether it was they go to the store and spend it, or they had their own bank account. They were able to get their own credit cards. It was around the 70s and 80s, and after that, when women finally started having their own money. And before that, the men did everything with money. Women weren't allowed to handle it. So there's that whole, I guess you can say, stereotype where women aren't allowed to have money. So we're still holding on to that, and it makes it even harder to handle our money today.
I can see that. And again, no nasty notes to Clarissa or me, because women have been in the workplace for a long time, and Clarissa is just saying, as a gender, I guess, about the 70s or 80s. So where were we going with that, guys? Oh, well, I don't know where we were going with that. But it is about having permission and giving ourselves permission. And a lot of this comes down to the DNA. So not only, the male side of things for whatever issues have come through the family, the women also now, like, uh-oh, what do we do with it now? Oh, that's right. Thank you. So I was brought up with don't make more.
Mm-hmm.
Men don't like, they get intimidated by, generally speaking, guys, okay? And there are very many evolved and consciously aware of themselves and in their own masculinity guys out there. So did you find that was part of your upbringing, or at least out of your many clients?
It wasn't in my own upbringing, but being an accountant, I've seen it multiple times by people that would come in to have their taxes prepared. And that was when it just clicked for me, when I worked one tax season as a tax preparer, and all these women were coming in, and I would ask questions for answers around their money. And they're like, I can't answer that. I need my husband. And that was where it really, really clicked for me that I need to help more women have more independence with their money. And this doesn't mean that women have to have independence and they cannot depend on anyone else. It means that you have this independence so that if something happens, you can handle your money. You know where the money's coming from. You know how to access the bank. You know how to access the credit card information. You have to know how to do all of this to be able to basically, well, like I said, be independent with your money so that it's there for you in case something does happen.
And it's more about empowering, not disempowering anybody in any relationship, but empowering more women specifically, because guys are pretty much brought up with this is what they do, generally speaking, right? So what is one of the obstacles or the challenges you had in working through your own money story, beautiful?
My biggest one was I have to work hard to make money. I grew up on a dairy farm, and there is not much money in farming, period. My mom didn't work a job. She only worked on the farm with my dad and us 4 kids. And that's all it was. And so that's the only source of income was the dairy farm. And then you're working a minimum of 10 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's no holidays. There's no vacations, because the animals always need to be fed. They always need to be taken care of. So you have to be there. So I grew up with that. And then that's part of the reason why I have 3 college degrees in accounting, because I have that whole, you have to work really hard to make money. And for me to be able to switch that off, it comes back on every once in a while, no matter how much I work on this belief. But for me to switch that off, I had to figure out ways that I didn't have to work hard to make money. Because for all 3 of my college degrees, I didn't have to work hard at all. Studying, well, not so much studying. I hate studying. I don't know how to study because I pick up information very quickly, very easily. So I always learned new stuff very easily. And getting college degrees, that was easy. And I was actually bored working just a full-time job and not doing anything else. So I ended up with 3 college degrees.
And good thing too, because obviously you needed those degrees to help you do what it is you're doing.
Kind of.
Okay.
The 3rd one, I didn't need at all. I did it because I was bored.
Okay. So how do you, and how do you, because every time you up-level your business or expand your own vibration, you run up against some of those same boundaries, right?
Yep.
So just pick one and walk us through how you did that for yourself.
So you mean one of my money
One
beliefs?
of your obstacles, one of your challenges, how did you actually work through one of them?
Okay, so let's go back to the I have to work really hard to make money, because that's the easiest one that always comes to mind whenever I'm doing any of these examples. So you have this one where you think you have to work really hard to make money. And this is what I tell all people, not just myself. So when you're trying to work through this belief, think of 3 reasons why this belief is true and write them down. So for me, I have to work hard to make money. I grew up on a dairy farm. I worked 10-hour days, 7 days a week for most of my life until I was 28 years old. At 28, that's when I moved 3 hours away. And I still live 3 hours away. I go home every once in a while, but not very often anymore. So I have that example of I had to work hard when I was younger. And then usually you can only have 1 to 2 examples for those ones where it's true, because you're stuck on what's true when it's really only 1 to 2 examples. And right now I can't think of more reasons for why that is actually true besides I grew up on a farm where you have to work hard.
And most women it's even in the workplace today, generally speaking, the pay is not equal. So for equal experience, equal degrees and all of that, generally speaking, women are paid less. Now, this isn't a dig on anybody, okay? Mm-hmm. It's just, this is part of the women. You grew up on a dairy farm and worked hard. Mm-hmm. Okay? And in addition to that, women have to work harder. That's what we think, in order to get farther or even to get even.
Yes, I personally have not had to deal with that. So that's why that one doesn't come up.
No, not for you, but for a lot of your clients, it probably comes up. Yeah. So what's one of your favorite ways to work with your clients around the money mindset relationship?
The first thing I have them do, and this is one of my favorites because it'll fuel everything that we're working on, is I want you to sit down and write out 10 to 20 rules that you have around money. And then you have to send me that list. And then we'll go through that list basically over the whole time that we're working together, because it'll help dig deeper, because you have this rule for I can't spend money on this, or I can't buy that. You don't even have to explain why. Just what are your rules that you have around money? And you have to come up with at least 10 of them. And then it helps me because when you have them written out and I can read them, and with my intuitive abilities, I can read between the lines, or basically I can hear what you're not saying, and you don't even know that you're trying not to say it, because it's buried so deep in your subconscious that you don't even know that it's present. And that's one of the biggest parts of my teaching is your money beliefs are buried so far into your subconscious that they become automatic actions and you don't even know why.
I totally agree with that. What people think it is just the beginning. It's a starting place. It's not. 99.99% of the time with every client I work with, and we're not working with the money piece necessarily, we're working with other things, and it's never what they think it is. And after we've worked together for a while, they go, oh my God, you were right. So wasn't that I didn't believe you, but oh my goodness. So let's go back to the fire and moving back in with your parents. What along that way during that year really triggered you to start your business? Because there was something, I mean, that was a humongous sign. It's like, okay, you've got to stop this. You've got to do what you came here to do. But what was the physical, human part of that? Where did you get triggered, or how did you figure that out?
Well, I kind of skipped a little part because for the 6 months leading up to the fire, I hated where I worked. I hated where I lived. I was getting all kinds of signs from the universe. I was ignoring every single one of them. So
you're not good.
Fire.
Not good.
Oh, I know. And basically the fire was that trigger, because normally most people would have depression from all of that happening. Losing your house, losing your job within a 2-week time span. I didn't have depression from that because I knew it was a sign from the universe, because I knew I had been ignoring everything for the past 6 months.
And the signs had probably been getting bigger and louder and more in your face, and you're going, nope, not doing it.
Right.
Ladies and gentlemen, that doesn't work.
No, it really doesn't.
Don't go through the fire. Say again?
And I'm kind of living proof that it doesn't work.
Yeah. A lot of us are living proof that whatever we try to ignore, don't.
Right.
Don't. So how did you first get started? Yes, you had the fire, or you experienced the fire, and you got out in time because Spirit, your guides, woke you on purpose. I mean, it was not for you to be harmed. It was just for you to get the H out of there, right. All of it. And so how did you actually start from living with your mom and dad? Because, you know, as a grown person, male or female, going back to mommy and daddy's, having been there, not once but twice, is like, it is the big S.
Yes.
You know, and especially as a woman, I don't know about guys, but especially as a woman, having our own house and then having to go back to mom and dad's and living with rules. And it's like, really? I have to be home by what time? But anyway, how did you actually get it started so that you could not only get yourself back on your feet, Clarissa, but then move out again 3 hours away?
Well, the whole moving out was actually because I landed another full-time job as a government auditor. Yeah, which was my dream job when I graduated college the first time. So that was the reason I was able to move out, because if I didn't get that job, I never would have been able to move out, because my business was fully online. It still is fully online. So, and my parents didn't even really know that I was operating my own business. because we would go to the barn from about 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. And then we had a break from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And that was when I would do most of my business stuff. And then we were back in the barn 4 p.m. to about 10 p.m. So, and there were days when we didn't have that break, so I couldn't work on my business. But at that point, I was doing specific energy healing, which was per person. So everything had to be from me to one other person. So I had to have the time to do it.
So when did you switch over from the one-on-one healing to the actual money mindset relationship healing work?
Around about 6 months into my business, but it wasn't money coaching specifically at that point. I had gone into bookkeeping type stuff because I'm an accountant, so bookkeeping is really easy. And the energy work for me was way too draining because I am basically, the way that I know how to explain it is I have too much power going through my body when I'm doing this energy healing that it just wipes me out completely. So I couldn't continue to do the energy healing because it was wiping me out way too much. So I did bookkeeping first. And this is when I really started working on my money story, was when I was doing the bookkeeping. And then I kind of fell into the money coaching because I had people come to me and ask, how did you make those changes? Can you help me make those changes? So I kind of, like I said, I fell into it because people are asking me how I can help them make the changes the way that I did.
And isn't it interesting that once we say yes to the first part of our purpose, because where you started is not where you are ending up now, and it'll probably evolve again. And when I first started full-time 8 years ago, no. Podcast? What are you, nuts?
Yep.
Never mind all the rest of it. And I'd been doing this work, some of the similar work, but not the same, for 3-ish years before part-time. So I did the full-time job and doing this on the side kind of thing while you're working on it. It's interesting how our paths evolve once we say yes.
Yes. Yep.
And you're probably still evolving.
I am, because I still work a full-time job on top of my own business, because I kind of already explained this, I had this whole, I have to work hard, which means if I'm not constantly busy, I'm actually bored. So in the past 3 years of moving down here and working this full-time job, actually it's almost close to 4 years at this point, I have watched Netflix seasons all the way through in about 3 weeks because I get bored super easily.
So what if you were able, at some point, do you foresee yourself being able to do your business full-time?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I say that because what I foresee happening is my business still won't be full-time because I want to be a full-time mother and not work a day job on the side. My business will be on the side of being a full-time mom.
Good answer. Okay. All right. What else would you like to share with our viewers, beautiful?
So let's go back to the money story a little bit. So when you write out those rules, it doesn't matter how many there are, but you have to write out at least 10. And then just look at them and see how that affects the rest of your life. You don't have to dig into them and figure out what kind of beliefs there are. But if you just look at them, you'll start seeing how these rules actually affect the rest of your life. You'll see the automatic actions that you have because these actions were formed before you turned 7 years old.
True. Probably a lot earlier than that.
Most of them happen between the ages of 3 and 7 because of everything that you see the adults doing with money when you're that young. And you don't even know this, but you take what you see, and you bury it deep into your subconscious, and it just becomes completely automatic.
Along with a lot of other things, yes. It's anyway, we won't get into that because it's really insidious. The conscious mind ego chitter chatter is, if there's ever such thing as a devil, we do need it, however, dang it, but it's still, wow. So I'm just checking over here. Would you share an example of one of your clients' success story? You don't have to say the name, but just we don't talk much today. A success story, please, beautiful.
Sure. So I have this one client who I started working with, and I kind of have this policy, which because of her, I actually changed it. So I had this policy, let's put it that way, where if you rescheduled your call 24 hours before, then you just rescheduled it. So when you start working on your money stuff, a lot of stuff comes up, and the biggest one is avoidance. So we had our first call, and she was okay with it. But she still had a lot of avoidance. She didn't want to talk about any of this. So she rescheduled our call, the next call, I want to say like 5 or 6 times. So we had almost 2 months between the first call and the second call because she was avoiding her money stuff so much. Because, like I said, I had that policy where if you rescheduled within 24 hours before or more, then nothing happened. And so she rescheduled. She knew she could reschedule, so she did. But after that second call, things actually started changing for her. She started landing more clients. She started charging more. Because when you have money issues, like she did, you can't charge enough to even live off of. Mm-hmm. She was doing basically virtual assistant work, and she was only charging $10 an hour to start with when we started working together. When we finished working together, which she added on about 2 extra months, so it was about 5 months that we worked together. But those 2 months in between, we weren't really working. She was just rescheduling everything so that she could completely avoid talking to me. So by the time we were done, she was charging about $38 an hour. And she was comfortable with charging $38 an hour because that was one of the first things that we talked about. How she could charge more to make more money to be able to support her kids. And I like to call it a game. So we played this game every single call we were on, where I would name a number and I would ask, how does that feel? So I would say $100. If you made $100 this month, how does that feel? And I think we ended up getting to about $8,000 was where it felt comfortable for her. And that's actually pretty good. We would do that every call, especially when we first started, she couldn't go over $800. And then for a whole month, that's how much she could make in a month. And it didn't feel comfortable for her. So after 5 months of work, she was charging $38 an hour. $8,000 a month felt comfortable to her. And she got over the whole avoiding me to avoid her money stuff. Just by us working together and me basically, I don't want to say forcing her, but in a way I did kind of force her to face the demons around her money.
And good for her for coming back and back and back, even though she did it for, kind of stretched it out for 2 months, but she didn't just quit.
Right.
She tried, but she just couldn't. So good for her. Would you please tell our viewers, beautiful, how they can find you?
Absolutely. So you can find me on Facebook at Clarissa Wilson LLC. That's my Facebook page. On Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest, it's all Clarissa A. Wilson. And my website is ClarissaAWilson.com. So you have to know that there's 2 A's in the middle. My Clarissa ends in an A, and there's an extra A. A lot of people forget that second A because ClarissaWilson.com was already taken, and it's still a completely blank website. So you get nothing if you go to that website.
So that's Clarissa, Clarissa, Wilson.com.
Yes.
And you can find her that way on social media as well. Thank you so much, beautiful, for sharing your story. The money piece, oh my gosh. People get all of Twitter, and I don't, never mind the platform. They get all flustered about it, and it's really one of the very big taboo subjects. You don't talk about it.
Right.
But then you don't get to heal it and move past it.
Mm-hmm. So
thank you so much for sharing your journey and for being so open about, hey, the universe was sending me signals and signs for 6 months, but it's like, yeah, talk about avoidance. Hello.
Yep.
So it wasn't even just a spiritual 2x4. It was like, oh, hello, we're going to clean you out.
Yep.
Insert nasty word. Thank you so much for being willing to go through that and being so open about it, because somebody, and y'all share this, because somebody if it's not you, needs to hear this so that they know there's life after fire. And think of it as a phoenix rising out of the ashes. Wow, that's really cool, guys. Thank you. We thank you for joining us, and pop by angeldreamteam.com and get yourself a free, easy-to-follow guide, Angels, Success, and Prosperity. Become a mover and shaker of your reality. Thank you so much for being with us. And until next time, bye-bye, beautiful soul.